I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz.
Vice President said. At Sunday night's CNN debate between Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden, the former vice president said he will definitely choose a woman as his running mate. He didn't specify whom he would pick, but you better believe her hair will smell amazing.
The U.S.-Canadian border has been closed. Well, at least something good has come out of this coronavirus thing, am I right? ISIS has instructed its members not to travel to Europe for jihad due to the coronavirus. They've been told to stay home and isolate.
Oh,
I love that.
Tom Brady is leaving the New England Patriots. Great. I guess I'm going to have to figure out a new reason to hate the New England Patriots. Tom Brady is leaving the New England Patriots. He says he wants to spend more time deflating footballs with his family. Tom Brady is leaving the New England Patriots, or you might say he's social distancing from the New England Patriots.
Yes, Tom Brady has left the New England Patriots. He actually didn't want to leave, but ESPN needed something to talk about for the next few months, so he figured why not. And finally, President Trump has recommended that public gatherings should be limited to no more than 10 people, or what's otherwise known as a Tulsi Gabbard rally. The Trump Report starts now. Take that, Tulsi. Anyway, I thought we were going to get the video there, and that's my mistake. These are crazy times, and you see us. Chelsea unable to be with us. She was in court all day, which, I don't know, shouldn't that be the first things to close the courts? I don't know, but I'm Christian Bladt, joined as always by Scott Brown. Scott Brown, that's the senator. Scott Moore.
That's right. Hey guys, good to be here.
Tamra Brown.
I thought that was you announcing that Scott and I have gotten married.
Yeah,
Thank you very
exactly.
much.
I figured this was we need a little joy in our lives, and obviously there's no real reason why you two kids shouldn't finally get together.
It's a modern world.
That's right.
In any case, obviously, I want all of our viewers to know that you are our most valued guest. I want to make sure that you know we're looking out for your safety during the COVID-19 outbreak. Here at the Trump Report, we have always practiced exceptionally high standards for cleanliness and safety. We follow rigorous daily sanitation and personal hygiene procedures. We do a lot of hand washing. I wear plastic gloves except for right now. And our staff is always told to stay at home sick. And you'll notice as you watch the show, there are hand sanitizing stations everywhere. So we just wanted you to know we're just like every corporation that has your email address. And we want to make sure you know that we're just as clean as they are. In any case,
I wish I was eating a plate of ribs right now.
By the way, I also wish I was eating a plate of ribs right now. That sounds fantastic.
It does.
In any case, we'll dive into it. Look, there's some big politics to talk about, but just sort of in general, I thought we'd take a moment to let all of us, but I'll start with you, Tamra. How you doing? How have the last couple of days been for you?
I am not a stay-at-home kind of person. It has been very difficult to social distance and self-isolate. But today I took my yoga mat to the park I figured that shouldn't be too bad. Like, I'm going to stay, at far more than 10 feet away from any other human being. I'm not touching any like shared surfaces or anything like that. So I thought that should be fine. I got to the park, and it was like Friday night at Chuck E. Cheese. Everybody is at the park. I want to say like people can't follow simple directions, but I guess I can't follow simple directions either. But then I got home and Dr. Sanjay Gupta was on CNN saying that going out to the park, running, jogging, things like that are fine. In fact, we do need vitamin D from the sun, but you just make sure that you stay 6 to 10 feet away from other human beings. Don't touch shared surfaces, all the stuff that we know that we're not supposed to do.
And Scott, how are you doing? It looks like you're working from home right now, which I think is reassuring.
Yeah, kind of like Tamara, it's really hard for me to just stay at home for long periods of time because I'm always running around doing a bunch of different things. Um, I'm sort of trying to enjoy the break. It's just that with nothing really open, there's nothing else to go to. Like even my gym is closed now, so it's like having to work out at home, or like Tamara was saying, making sure I'm getting outside, walking the dogs. But it's a little bit of a whole new world order here. Trying to figure out doing everything remotely. Is definitely a little bit of a learning curve because we are social beings as humans. So, to completely self isolate is definitely a challenge, I think, for everybody, even for people that do work from home. You're used to the conveniences of just being able to go out somewhere for lunch, go to Starbucks or wherever for coffee, little things that you can do throughout the day that you really just can't do at all right now. So it's definitely a steep learning curve for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's crazy to think about how fast this has all happened. We did our last show on Wednesday. There
Hmm.
was never even a second that we thought like, oh, well, we might not be coming back. By doing shows there later in the week, you started, really Wednesday night was the big speech from President Trump, and that's when people started to think about things. But I mean, I I went to a concert Wednesday night. It was a small club, under 250 people, doesn't matter. But I mean, I went to the gym on Friday. We didn't even know that
Yeah.
our kids' school was going to be closed until we picked them up Friday afternoon, and they said for at least the next 2 weeks. And at that moment, I'm like, oh, that's so inconvenient. The next 2 weeks, and now I'm like, well, be lucky if it's not the next 2 months, or I don't know, depending on what news source you believe, maybe the next 2 years. But it's and sort of my comfort level of, all right, well, I'll okay, well, some of us can still do the show from AfterBuzz at the studios. Some of us can connect in the way that we all are right now, and then they close the studios. And it's the same thing for my day job. I was going to go into that studio, and then all of a sudden, no one could go into that studio. So, and then really, we're just not seeing anyone else. My wife and I are spending time with another family because sort of the idea is if you do that, it's my son and daughter. It's two kids that are the same age. It's like you're with one family. It's all the same germs, but you're not seeing any other outside people. Uh, but it's you want to talk about the learning curve is the idea of like the one good thing about it, I'll say actually, is every day it gets us up and out of the house because we go to their house. So everybody's got to get dressed, everybody's got to get ready. And if this had happened before we had kids, or God, if it had happened before I got married, I wouldn't have shaved. I definitely wouldn't have showered in the last 5 days because why? You know, there would be just as many
Well,
takeout
I'm
containers.
glad that you have children in that case.
Well, you wouldn't be able to smell me from here, Tamara. At least I hope not. But yeah, it's just
Not
very
yet.
weird. And yeah,
Not yet until they invent smell-o-vision.
yeah, that's true. One day.
Why do
And
we
then,
not have that yet? Come on, science.
before we move on to some of the actual news and everything, what is the what have either of you had any notable experiences shopping, just trying to get things, or have you managed to be able to stay away from it so far?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, I went out on Friday night just to do just my normal weekly shopping, right? Just to try to go out, and I thought I'll wait until about 9:30, 10 o'clock Friday night just to see if the crowds would kind of calm down a bit. And I pulled into the parking lot to the grocery store, and it was completely filled. There wasn't a single cart. I finally got a cart from someone when they were leaving, and things were completely. It was very odd, though. I must have taste on it. I'm still there, except for bananas. But it was also kind of odd too because this was Friday night. I'd gone to the gym. Everything was still somewhat normal. But thinking about the fact that it was so crazy, it took me 45 minutes to get through lines to pay. But I thought, at the same time, there's no real like help. They were restocking everything, but help with keeping everyone socially distant. Everyone was packed in the store. There was no sanitizer, no wipes. The poor cashiers were working like crazy, and again, they were interacting with everybody. And I thought, really not keeping people from spreading this illness still, because everyone's so close together. It's packed. People are kind of doing all this panic buying. And so I kept thinking about the workers there who are working long hours, who are exhausted, that they may eventually get sick too from dealing with every single customer coming through the door. So it was a little bit crazy to see that on Friday night. I haven't been back yet. I'll probably have to go back again at the end of the week, just because I'm trying to just do normal weekly shopping and not be crazily stocking up. But it's going to be interesting to see how it is this week compared to last week.
Yeah,
I mean, go ahead, Tamara.
Yeah, I went last week. I think it was like last Thursday. And I would say even in just a week's time, kind of what you're saying, Christian, like last week, we didn't know it was going to be like this, but like it was Thursday at noon last week. So the craze, I don't think we weren't aware of what this was going to lead to. And Trader Joe's was just it wasn't even noon, and the place was just completely packed full of people, and people were pushing around these shopping carts with just this mountain of stuff. And, you know, I don't understand the hoarders. I don't understand that. I've kind of been just grabbing things here and there as needed. I haven't really stocked up on anything. I haven't needed toilet paper. I haven't needed hand sanitizer or anything like that. Luckily I haven't needed it. I don't know what I would do if I did. I don't wash my hands. That's what it sounds like I was saying. I don't, very filthy. No, I have a lot of it happen to, so I didn't need to buy it. But I'm going to go to the store actually when we're done here. So I'll give you an update on how things are shaping up.
Yeah, it's interesting because anything you can get online, I'll check periodically, and a lot of it, you know, they're just out, and like Target won't even let you reserve things to pick up. They won't ship things. But, you know, like 2 weekends ago, that's when I was just like, oh, I don't know, people are starting to look around for toilet paper, and I ordered it on the Target app. It took 4 days. I got it. You can't do that stuff anymore. But I was at a Target over the weekend, and everybody was walking around holding a case of toilet paper. And then I definitely bought into it because I'm like, wait, if they have
what
it,
do they know that I don't know?
Yeah, shouldn't I get it? So I bought one, and it was like $25. And this lady was like, wasn't it $16 last week? And the lady who works at Target, she's like, I don't know, that's just what it is. And you're starting to see sort of some subtle price gouging, where anything that was ever a sale price, they've gone to like the regular price. But look, I mean, there's the argument that if you would let stores raise the price, people wouldn't be hoarding it. But then it's like, well, then the people who need it don't get it. So I don't know the solution. Anyway, we're interested in everybody in the audience, what their experiences are. But Scott, let's move over to a very important conversation. I'm surprised you made it here, because I'm pretty sure I saw you out at spring break in Florida over the weekend. You were there, right?
Of course.
Isn't that the craziest thing that's the craziest thing I've seen on the news, is like just how many people were still out for spring break this weekend, and that the beach wasn't closed. But then I was like, oh, but it is Florida.
My sister just got back from a cruise. She was on a cruise until 2 days ago.
Yikes. Wow. Yeah. I don't know who went on a cruise like 2 weeks ago or whatever. But Scott, what did you think of all the spring breakers out in Florida and the fact that the beaches weren't closed? Did it surprise you even a little?
To be honest, not at all. And really, I mean, when you really think about it too, you think about younger kids on spring break, you know, sort of that innovative, you know, that you're feeling, you can live forever, you know, nothing's going to get you sick. And to be honest, the weather has been really unseasonably warm too. So it just feels great to get outside. And, you know, these college kids that are not really working or going to school on campus anymore are probably feeling like they wanted to just have a little bit of fun. So it really doesn't surprise me. And I don't really know how you could close beaches down and everything, but I think it's a lot more difficult to do something like that than it is to close a bar or restaurant where you can have close proximity. I mean, in general, at least you can spread out when you're at the beach. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me. The weather was great. You know, college kids feel invincible. They're going to live forever, and they're not really thinking of it as a major threat. It's not going to stop them from partying, especially when the weather's nice. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and look, it's even in cities where they were closing everything down. Look here in LA. At first, it was like half occupancy at restaurants.
Hmm.
Movie theaters in Burbank were open until I think yesterday or Monday, and they were just kind of spaced out. Just out of curiosity, I looked at the app for the movie theater, and you saw they were like 5 seats, but they were all like as far apart as you could be from each other.
I
And
I did too, but I was looking it up in LA just to see because why it was still open, and I was surprised that at least from looking at the app for AMC, it looked like they were still letting people sit together. So I was kind of confused by that until they closed, of course. Because I was
yeah,
looking over the weekend and I thought, okay, if they are they really spacing people out? Because I was hearing that you couldn't even sit next to your family members or friends; you had to be a couple spaces. Every time I looked at the app, it still looked like people were able to sit together. And I don't know if that was because I hadn't gone in and actually bought a ticket from, but when I looked at it, I was somewhat surprised because that's what they kept saying they were going to do. But then of course they shut down, and now they say 6 to 12 weeks, which is crazy. So who knows?
yeah. I mean, you get varying different degrees of what the expectation is for when things are going to happen. We saw movies get pushed back, and major concert tours put on hold, and you really get the feeling that the NBA, the MLB, those are closed until at least June, maybe July, and it's I don't know, it's so hard to wrap your head around. But I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna speak on behalf of both of you. I'm sure you're comfortable feeling that the team we have in Washington, D.C. are the best people that we could have in charge of this, and it'll be handled in the best way possible. Right, Tamara? I just took those words out of your mouth, probably.
Um, I don't know whether to yes and this or just completely throw up like those words make me want to do. Um, it's just so crazy how there's these clips going around of like Trump and then also separately Fox News correspondents like early in March saying this thing's a hoax, it's being blown way out of proportion, and then 2 weeks later making sure that everybody's taking this very seriously. This is a pandemic, and just completely ignoring the fact that they are immediately contradicting themselves. But who cares about that, right?
I mean, that is a pretty great video that's going around where you do see, and CNN was kind enough to produce this piece, by the way, showing Fox News at the beginning of the month. And yeah, look, I mean, I would say maybe not a week ago, no, probably about a week ago, because yeah, it was last Wednesday. I was just like, "Ugh, I mean, it's fine, of course it's bad. You just have to be careful. You have to wash your hands, you know. And then when President Trump gets on TV and he has to admit that it's like this, and the way he's been in the last week, I'm like, oh man, it's way worse than even he's telling us. But for him to say this much, that's when I start to know. Like, think it's, I think things might be bad if President Trump is saying that it's not amazing. Now,
Also,
he was quick.
it was released as news that he tested negative for the virus. So I mean, I think that's pretty much confirmation that he has it. Most things, when they are released, just sort of in a vacuum for no reason, it's like, well, I think we know what you're really read between the lines on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I believe his doctor said that he wasn't obese. So clearly, I mean, obviously for his physical. So yeah, clearly he's able to get them to say anything. I think if we don't see him for like 3 days, that's when he's got it. And I don't know if he's
I
gonna
would
have like
love to not see him for 3 days. I hope that we
Or,
don't.
or
I mean, I'm honestly not like I'm not wishing that the man falls deathly ill. I don't wish that, but it would just be nice to just get the mute button for a little bit from him.
yeah,
Yeah, Scott, you feel like Vice President Pence is probably right on top of all this, right? We couldn't have anybody better in charge.
oh yeah, 100%. I feel so
Right.
much better with him in charge. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you would think like, shouldn't there be a government agency that helps prepare for pandemics and global health crises? And then you find out, oh, actually there was, but President Trump disbanded it 2 years ago. When asked by an interviewer, he did say that he didn't do it, but then there was an op-ed that conveniently started going around from I believe it was from the New York Times, where the guy says, yes, there was one, and Trump closed it. I know because I ran it. So, there was preparedness, but I don't know. Look, we could be a week into him just being like, I don't know what everybody's talking about. We're not Italy. Go out, spend money. It's good for the economy. So I don't know. I mean, look, we're getting all the projections for what this could be, where this could go. At some point in a couple of years, we'll see what had happened if we didn't do this. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know, is it enough? Because people are still able to go out to work. I mean, look, people who work in the healthcare profession, and unfortunately, I'm sorry, people who work in supermarkets, somebody's got to be there.
I saw that today HUD is making it so that you, at least for the next foreseeable future, if you can't make your mortgage payments, or if you can't, like they're, what's the word? Like, you're not going to be penalized.
Right. Sure. Yeah. No, look, I mean, that's the political aspect of this, which comes in, is this idea of every American, well, adult American is going to get $1,000, maybe $2,000 to help out. And when that first was floated, funny tweet from our friend Yang in the Yang gang, just saying like, oh, why is my phone buzzing so much? Because obviously that was his thing. He wanted to give everybody $1,000, and I was always in for that. But there's that, and then there's also this like $1 trillion spending proposal, which that's the crazy thing, is we have a president who wants to give everybody money, wants to have like $1 trillion stimulus, and you're just thinking, did somebody steal Bernie Sanders' playbook? Because this seems like exactly what he was talking about, and you have Donald Trump doing it. Now you'll of course have the negative Nellies out there. You have people saying,
Nelly, why you gotta be so negative?
Yeah, exactly. You'll have, you have people that are saying things like, no, it should come from the employers, but the employers don't have any money. And there's this idea that we should bail out the airline industry, but we bailed out the airline industry, and then they use that money to buy back their own stock and put in more seats and start charging for all these extra things. So I don't know. I feel bad for people who work for the airlines, but it's like, does the airline industry need more money, Scott? Or I don't know. I mean, is it essential that we help them?
I agree with you. And, this hits close to home because my dad is still a pilot, and he's hoping to retire next year after over 40 years as a pilot. And I even think that, the airlines have mismanaged. They have been riding on record profits for years and years, and they charge for every little thing here and there. And using the tax cuts from 2017 for stock buybacks to give to their, richest executives and to their stock, to their directors and the board and the stockholders. So I don't really think at this point they deserve to be bailed out. I think more importantly, like people have been saying, you need to bail out the workers and the people that are really going to be hurt by missing a few paychecks, and not just be giving money to these huge corporations that basically have paid zero in taxes all these years, have been riding on these record profits, and have been passing down all these nickel and dime charges to people. So as much as it's going to hurt these airlines, I think at some point you have to kind of let them sort things out. And I've heard rumors from lots of places now, like for instance, United is basically be cut in half by the end of April. And I've heard crazy rumors that American will declare bankruptcy by May if they don't get help, and that theoretically companies like Uber could come in and buy them out. I mean, you start hearing all these crazy things now. And even with Disney, like you've heard rumors now that Apple will come in and try to buy them. I mean, there's a lot of craziness going out there right now, but I think at the end of the day, the money needs to be sent to the consumer, the people that are really going to be hurting, because as we know, this economy has been riding on consumers. 70% of the economy is essentially with people that are going out and feeling confident buying things. And if people aren't buying things, that's where you're going to see a deeper and deeper hole. So the immediate money needs to go to everyday Americans before it goes to the big corporations to bail them out.
Yeah. Tamra, do you feel like some of these gigantic multinational corporations who deserve billions of dollars, or do you think that the three of us should get all of the $1 trillion split 3 ways? Sorry, Chelsea, you're not here today. You don't get any of the $1 trillion.
Why are you lobbying these lofty?
I just want it. What?
At me,
a third of $1 trillion, whatever that is. You know what? $333 billion. I'll figure out how to spend it.
So I'm reading Elizabeth Warren's book from 2017, This Fight Is Our Fight. And it talks, I'm right now with the part of, when in the 1970s, when Lewis Powell, the corporate lawyer, went on to be Supreme Court justice. He's the one a lot of people credit with turning things around to put power back into the corporations' hands that FDR had, taken the power away from the corporations, and he's the one in 1971 that brought it back. So I'm thinking about him a lot lately and shaking my fist at Lewis Powell for the state of the way that we are right now. But I think that what you were kind of saying about Trump sounding like Bernie Sanders suddenly with, saying we're going to do the stimulus package, it's sort of forcing the government's hand to consider all of the policies that progressives have been saying for a long time. I mean, 60 seconds ago, one of us just said, I think Scott just said that the working class is the one that the stimulus, without a strong working class, then that's not, this country doesn't function well. So I think it's going to, a lot of good can come out of this if certain things that will help the middle class actually comes out of this, because they're forced to. So things like a stimulus, things like, if it's possible to bail out the workers, but not the board of trustees and above of any corporation, I don't know if that's likely to actually happen. But, I'm just saying that a lot of Republicans are suddenly forced to start considering what they were previously calling socialism in order to not completely tank the economy, and also not allow, Trump, the only way that he can keep his head above water right now is to do everything that he can to keep Americans afloat. As a friend of mine calls this epidemic boomer remover. It's taking out his support, a whole generation of his supporters. So the least he can do is give us a stimulus package.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it seems to, unfortunately, the most effective seem to be the elderly, and that seems like Joe Biden's core demographic. But I do see.
You think so? More so than Trump?
Yeah, I think so. I think that you're right, that they're that's both of their sweet spots. But I do think that that's certainly is helping Joe. And let's talk about Joe and the continued Joe momentum. Ohio decided, hey, we're not going to vote. We're not going to vote in our primary. We're going to put it on hold. Which there was some concern about that. A Republican governor stepping in and saying, hey, let's not have the Democratic primary. But at the same time, it's not that they canceled it. They're just like, yeah, let's just not do it right now. And you saw some of the voting lines in the states that did vote, and you saw how far apart everybody was. Look, if it had been our turn to vote yesterday, I would have mailed it in. I was like, I don't need to go into a room like that. I don't need to wait. I don't need to be around that many people. But the states that did vote did not go Bernie's way at all. Florida, Illinois, Arizona, all Biden country. So, and I mean, it wasn't close in any of them. And the trend that we were talking about last week, where Bernie is so far off from where he was 4 years ago, which I think a lot of people are still thinking of that as being the Hillary Clinton factor, which there are those who hope that that translates to November. But, look, Bernie, he's won, Scott, he won, what states has he won of these 3 super duper Tuesdays that we've had? We thought he was going to win Washington, but he didn't.
No.
Do you even remember the last one that he won?
He won North Dakota. That was the only one he won last week. Right. And it's just gotten worse and worse for him, because this week I haven't looked at the Arizona numbers yet, countywide, but he had only won, or was leading in only one county in Illinois, which was a huge difference from 4 years ago. And he didn't win a single county in Florida. So it's just like every week it's just gotten worse and worse and worse for Bernie. And I think the biggest one, and I said this last night to someone, I'm like, if Arizona goes to Biden, then really Bernie needs to just pack it up, because Arizona was his next, for Bernie Sanders, his next best chance to win, just demographically. And you could see that with some of the numbers. You saw that, he still has a really good support among Latino voters. But even then, Biden still eked out a win. I think it was like 45-44 for Biden. And then you just saw the numbers like everywhere else. It's just the African-American vote was a huge blowout for Biden, even in Arizona. Like we talked about, the 65 and over vote, really 45 and over vote is really huge for Biden. And then the younger voters are still going out in huge numbers for Bernie Sanders. But it's just seeing these huge lopsided wins for Joe Biden. Just at this point, there is really no way that Bernie Sanders can catch up. So he really should be thinking about suspending his campaign after, especially Arizona. But yeah, it's like every week it's gotten worse and worse for Bernie. Last week he was able to eke out a win in North Dakota, and the week before he had a few states. Super Tuesday he was able to pick up California by quite a big number, and Colorado. It's just every week it's gotten worse for him. But I would say, just real quick about the Ohio vote, I think the unfair thing about the Ohio vote is now those voters are going to be deprived of being able to have their say. Because now it's something like June 2nd. And at that point it's done, especially if Bernie packs it up before then. So it's just a shame that those voters were not able to have their say in such a large bellwether state. Not saying it's any different than any other state having their say, but that's a large state that now has been deprived really of being able to have a say at the last minute. And I think it added to the confusion. And I've been rather impressed by Governor Mike DeWine, who's a Republican. I've been impressed by his leadership and dealing with this crisis up until that point. And then I thought, oh, there he goes again, being a Republican. It's just making it more difficult for people to vote. And I understand that numbers went way down. We saw in Illinois, it's down like 20-something%, because they're not really a mail-in state. You saw the Florida numbers basically break even from 2016 because people were not showing up. Arizona was a slight increase, but there's a lot of people that mail in as well there. But you did see the day of votes definitely drop precipitously, but I still think it was unfair to deprive a state as big as Ohio that opportunity to vote. So that was kind of a shame for them, since at this point the race is pretty much done.
And your gut feeling about Ohio, it would not have gone to Bernie, hypothetically, as far as you could tell heading into that. So
no.
Yeah, but if like, let's just say it did go to Bernie, then all that would do is draw out the inevitable. I mean, Bernie's still drawing out the inevitable from a lot of people's standpoint. But Tamra, do you feel like this is the point where it's like, why would Bernie stay in any longer? Or do you think he's not so far off that, I mean, the math is not in his favor, again, as Andrew Yang would say, but do you feel like this would be the time for Bernie to get out, or does it make sense for him to stick around a little longer?
Oh, no, it's definitely, I mean, he's, as much as I hate to say it, it's time for him to get out. And I'm sure that will happen, I think, pretty sooner rather than later, probably within the next 7 days. And because he's got no reason, like I thought, the reason that people like Buttigieg stayed in the race as long as he did because I thought he was angling for like a VP nomination or something, but there's no other angle for Bernie to go for. Like there's no benefit. There would be no side benefit. Biden ain't choosing him for his running mate. So, I mean, what could he gain by staying in the race?
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, I feel like look, the trend before last week was that, Biden was really, I just like to use it because it's a bad term, was really gaining the Joe-mentum. And look, if we can't have words like Joe-mentum to laugh at, what do we have left at this point? But, look, the trend was already heading that way. This does throw off everything. And I guess the bigger question becomes, how long does this continue? Does this go on through the summer? Do we blow out the conventions? And if you don't have the conventions, what do you think it would take, Scott, for us to not have our election on I think, is it November 3rd, whatever the predetermined day was? What do you think would have to happen for that to be the case? I mean, we do have a self-proclaimed wartime president now who says he has wartime powers against the virus.
Right.
So could he suspend the election?
No, he can't unilaterally suspend the election. That has to come from Congress. And that's the thing, like Governor Mike DeWine, even though he avoided going with the court order, which essentially said he needed to go ahead with the election. And then he did a runaround and said, oh, it's a health issue, and had his health director issue this of no voting. The thing is, governors at this point cannot do those type of things when it comes to the actual general election day. That is inscribed in the Constitution. That is the first Tuesday in November. That is not something that the president can unilaterally change. It would have to come from Congress. You are starting to hear a lot of rumors. Is he going to try to declare martial law? Is he going to say, CDC is not advising people to go out and vote? There are things they can do to really try to mess it up and make it more difficult for people to go out and vote. And that would be my concern more than anything, is that that's what they would try to do is limit voting, or governors would still have places open, but they'd be very limited, or they'd be closed in a lot of places and in certain parts of the state to limit certain voters from being able to get out there and exercise their right. That's more of my concern. And they could, put it under the guise of health issues. But as far as actually postponing the election or anything, that is not something a president or even a state can do when it comes to the general. The primary is different, and that's why you can see some of these states saying we're going to push it back. But a general election is inscribed in the Constitution, so it's not something a state can just decide to avoid doing.
Oh, boy, I was just thinking back to a simpler time when what we were complaining about was that they couldn't figure out voting in Iowa. Remember that? That wasn't
Yeah,
that
we were
long
so
ago.
innocent
Was that
then.
a month ago?
We were so innocent and naive then, for sure.
Before we run out of time, I do want to talk about how, look, there was a debate on Sunday, and in all honesty, I think there should never be an audience for a debate ever again. Look, it wasn't the most interesting. I did zone out a little bit, but you got to issues. You got to, they made points. I don't know, the questions seemed better. Tamra, did you take any of your quarantine time to watch the debate on Sunday night?
I actually didn't. It was strange because so much focus at that point Sunday night because like we've mentioned a couple times, even just last week, it was sort of over the weekend where the gravity of the situation sort of came to the forefront. So I think the debate sort of slid into the background. So I didn't watch it. No. The highlights it seemed to me like, to read up on it afterwards, it wasn't quite as much as previous debates. It's just a lot less focus in general. But did Bernie finally explain how to pay for Medicare for all? I mean, my point is, I don't think the debate, as the last 5 of them, it just did not move the needle at all.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't know. I don't know that. See, I say things like, I don't think Bernie ever explained how to pay for Medicare for all. But then the Bernie bros and gals, you're out there, the team Bernie will say, no, he absolutely said how he did it. I was like, well, I still don't understand it. Maybe I'm not smart enough.
He
Scott,
always refers you to his website, which I looked on his website, and he does have a plan on the website for, we're going to put this much taxation on this class of people. You know, it makes sense in my bird brain, but I just don't understand how come whenever he was asked that question, he just referred people to the website rather than answered the question. But I guess at this point, it's neither here nor there.
Right. No, exactly. I mean, it's just, yeah, I mean, I think it's largely, it's, I don't know, it's, it kind of doesn't matter at this point, you know. So I don't know exactly where to go. Scott, did you check out the debate or just watch clips after? What did you see?
No, I watched the full debate on Sunday, and I do agree with you. I think it was great not having the audience. And it was pretty much what I expected. It was, you know, not too much fireworks like a couple weeks ago. Really didn't get any clear answers. I agree with Tamra. It's not going to really move the needle, which we saw on Tuesday. I mean, these blowout wins by Joe Biden. I guess it was good to have that moment, though, I think, for people just to see the two of them, because we have not gotten to that point of just one-on-one debate to really kind of see where they would stand. They did pretty good. There was some sniping, a little back and forth there, which was kind of expected. But compared to 4 years ago, I really think there is still a camaraderie, believe it or not, between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, because they spent many years together in the Senate. And there is still a little bit more of a cordial relationship than there was between Bernie and Hillary 4 years ago. So I still saw that. I saw some times where they were a little bit of sniping, which was a little much. But overall, I thought it was exactly what we were going to expect to see. And at this point, I believe there's only one more debate until the general, if Bernie stays in it. So after all these months of debate after debate, some coming, 5 days apart, as we saw last month, it's kind of crazy to think that we're basically done now. So even if Bernie stays in it, there's only one more scheduled until the general.
And look, as we talk about the planned stimulus, the $2,000 for all Americans, do you think on some level we should blame Mike Bloomberg and Tom Steyer for all the money that they spent? Just like, well, you should have kicked that out into the economy in some way. Why don't they bail out the airline industry? I don't know. I just think it's fair for all the money that they're wasting. Now, we do only have a few minutes. And obviously there are a lot of things to talk about. And I don't know, just for me, I think that the biggest problem is that there isn't a uniform approach on what to do to this. There are, as far as I can tell, there are states that still have restaurants open. And I think it's, it's states like Montana, West Virginia, I think just got its first case like yesterday. But when you look at the fact that there's 200,000 cases worldwide, and last week there were 100,000, clearly it spreads really fast. I don't know what the right solution is. And if we need to take Trump out of it and just pretend we had a different president for a moment, I'm just kind of wondering, what do each of you think? This is what could really help. The president should do this. Should it be like we can't even really like go outside? Nobody should go to work. I don't know what it is. Is there one thing that you can think of, Tamra, that like, well, this is what would really help and everybody should have to do this?
No, I can't think of what that one thing is. I think we're all just playing it by ear as we go along. Yeah. I do think, obviously Trump should have started taking action a lot sooner. That he probably had informed information on how serious it was a lot sooner. But other than that, I don't know what would have been the difference if Obama was president, if anybody else was president, what would have been done differently.
Well, that's the Monday morning quarterbacking of, if somebody else was president, that office still would have existed. And I guess when it first started to spread in China, that there could have been, I don't know, we could have started developing tests, but it's very easy to say now. Look, well, let me ask you the same question, Scott, and then I'll make one final point after that. Is there something that you think we should urge all Americans to do something? I mean, yes, be clean, be safe, but is there? Then you saw that video from spring break, so clearly people aren't even listening to that. What is there something that you think like, oh, a president should be able to say, this is what we need to do?
Well, I think it goes beyond what a president would say. I think it really comes down to the preparedness. And I think the biggest issue is the fact that, like Tamara was saying, he didn't take it seriously early enough. And the lack of testing, to me, is the biggest issue right now. Because I think if you had easy access to testing, you could easily be able to figure out who might be sick or not without having to do more pinpointed quarantines and self-isolation than having to do these blanket ones right now, which is what we have to do because there's just not enough testing. And as I was saying to my mom yesterday, who actually lives in Arizona, and she said everything's still basically open in their small town for now, I said, when you're in a big city like Los Angeles or New York or Seattle, even San Francisco, that you have to take harder, tougher measures because of just the amount of people living in such a small space. And because this virus is so easy to be transmitted, that in small confined spaces, a lot easier for it to overwhelm the system. Whereas you might have some less populated states like Idaho that just got their first case the other day, in West Virginia, that you might be able to still keep some things open and keep the economy going because there's not as many people literally in those areas, and still take those precautions. And I think that's the biggest challenge, is that you have 50 different states with different responses as opposed to the federal government. And then not to mention, you have all these other countries throughout the world that have to take their own measures as well, which are going to be different. So it's a huge challenge regardless of who is the president or not. My issue was the fact he didn't take it seriously, calling it a hoax, and spent many weeks wasting valuable, precious time, which could have been used towards helping to pinpoint this. But the biggest issue is the lack of tests. And that would help us to be able to pinpoint where some of these outbreaks are and be able to pinpoint where we're having isolation at, instead of having to do these blanket things, which we're going to have to do for the foreseeable future in large cities, especially, to be able to make sure that we don't do it too early to release, these hard, tough restrictions and then have these cases escalate again because we too soon to let people back out. So it's a big challenge right now. And, it'd be a big challenge regardless of who was in the White House. But he exacerbated it, and that's the big issue I have with it.
And more more tests would just, hold him accountable for how much further it's spread than we realize, and how many more deaths are due to this than we realize, and those numbers will be under his watch. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, there are still people who believe that it is to some degree a hoax, that it is a weapon of of Democrats, of the fake news media trying to undermine Trump. And I obviously I don't believe those things, but I do think it is undermining Trump because of the way he handled it. And you guys know how I have talked about 2020 for most of the time we've been doing this show. And look, a lot can happen over I guess it really is. It's 8 months. A lot can happen, but I don't see how you come back from this. And honestly, I don't think he wants to be president anymore. There's an argument as to whether or not he ever wanted to be president.
Right.
I think he liked it for a while, and I think he's like, no, Pence, you can handle this, right? And he's like, I don't want to do it. Mother says I can't be alone with a virus. So I don't know. I mean, it's so insignificant compared to the fact that people are dying and just the way it's spreading, and even people who pull through, just the ordeal they had. But ultimately, that's going to be the big picture and the impact it has on this election. And if you felt like there had been people who were responsible and approaching it in charge, attempts were made, it's a different story. But this is just like, all you need to do is an ad where he's like, yeah, this coronavirus is a hoax, and the date on that is like March 9th. You're like, okay, and how many people were dead at that point? So I don't know. Look, we'll have a lot of time to talk about all these things and more in the weeks ahead. I hope that people have enjoyed watching the show like this, because this is what the show is going to be for a while. I would love for it to be just this week and next week, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's going to be a while. I think an upbeat, an optimistic estimate would be the end of April, but even that sounds crazy to me. But I'm home all day with 2 kids, and as I said, we're with 2 other kids all day too. I have to tell myself the end of April right now. When we get to later in April, maybe I'll change my estimate. I can't think beyond that at that point. But I do appreciate both of you and everybody who was in the chat. And if you're watching the archive version, please leave comments. We welcome all, and look, if you feel like we're being hard on President Trump, tell us what you think. We always welcome that feedback, whereas some shows maybe don't. Tell us why we're wrong. You can tell me that I'm an idiot, but you have to tell me why I'm an idiot. Just give me the why. That's fine. We all know I'm an idiot.
Like anyway, we do. Tell him why.
Yeah, you guys know, but you guys always tell me why, so it's fine. So we are out of time, and I think people should want to keep in touch with us. So Tamra, how do people keep in touch with you?
Find me on Instagram at Hey Tamra. I think I'm going to be posting some Instagram lives in quarantine.
And Scott Moore, where do people find you?
You can find me on Twitter calling out Moscow Mitch and Donald Trump at SMan80. That's SMan80.
And of course, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. And look, AfterBuzz is doing a great job in still producing so many of these shows. You can find me tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. We'll be doing over on Popcorn Talk. We'll be doing Marvel movie news. Big news there because they've had to push back movies and TV production. So we'll see where all that goes. And then if for just some lighthearted fun to think about the future, tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Pacific, the Star Trek Picard After Show. That is all the time we have for this week. Oh, and you can follow the show at Trump Report ABTV. So we will see you next Wednesday at this same time. Until then, as the great Jerry Springer would say, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye, everyone. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.